In BX, Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, not all XP charts were created equal. This might be a little bit of a shocker to those of you who've grown up on 3rd edition or later. Excuse me. I got a frog in my throat. But that's exactly how the game worked. Fighters had harder, clerics leveled faster, right? Magic users spent half their careers praying, and I admit they weren't clerics, but praying to survive to level 2. And somehow, some way, it was perfectly balanced. So tonight we're going to dive into how Moldvay, Cook, and Marsh balanced one of the simplest and yet smartest systems ever through pacing, asymmetry, and a whole lot of 1981 logic that should still make sense today. So, if you've cracked open the red or blue books lately, I'm going to show you mine. You open it up and you look at this page here, and you look at, oh, wow, I lost the picture there. You look at those XP charts, they've got different amounts, right, based upon class. So a fighter needs 2,000 here at level 2. Thief, 1,200. Cleric, 1,500. And magic user is at 2,500, and let's not even talk about the elves. That wasn't sloppy math, though. That was balance. And that was the balance that they were trying to achieve. Each class was paced differently according to its power curve. Fighters had slow growth, steady growth, reliable progression. This wasn't the slowest. It was kind of mid-range. Clerics were quick leveling, but had a slower combat edge. And remember, at first level, they didn't have any spells. Thieves had fast advancement and were fragile early into Viola because they had D4 hit points. We'll do a video on the hit points situation at a later time. And magic users were high risk, huge reward later. If your magic user survived, it was going to be powerful. But each class felt unique because advancement meant something different. Balance wasn't about equality, it was about pacing your growth. Modern D&D wants everything to be symmetrical. Same XP, same power curve, balanced encounters. Oh my God, balanced encounters. But BX, no. It said balance comes from how you play, not what you play. So, player skill was a great equalizer. You had to think out of the box. Unequal XP made cooperation necessary. You couldn't just leave the slower to level behind because you needed that power later. The XP system rewarded creative play, not stat optimization. You didn't need to do some CR math, right? Always got to talk about that CR in 5e to make things fair. Secret, it was never fair. Everybody watching did it, but that's another video. You needed guts, a plan, maybe a little luck, and a torchbearer or two. So, the real genius, though, comes to the demihumans, right? When you look at the demihumans, in BX, race was class. We dealt with that in another video. But each also had their own XP track that did a pretty good job at reflecting its strengths. So the dwarf was a tank with a cost. They leveled slower than fighters, so about a 10% penalty, 2,200 instead of 2,000 for first level, because they were built to last, right? Better saves, heavy armor, D8 hit points, it made them survivable. So Moldvay slowed down their growth, figuring it kept the pacing fair. Now, there will be arguments that they should have slowed it down more, but that was what he felt was fair. Elves, they're like the prestige class of 1981, 45 years ago. Elves were both fighter and magic user, but there was a cost. So, fighter needed 2,000 XP for a second level. Magic user required 2,500, and elf required 4,000. So, not quite twice what a magic user needed. Actually, not even. I guess average should have been like what 4,250. It was pretty steep path anyway. It meant that the elf took essentially twice as long to level, but they could swing swing a sword, cast a spell. That's elegant balance just by stretching out their leveling. The elf felt powerful, but you paid for it in the slow leveling in time, which actually made sense for a long-lived race, right? More powerful, but they came into more power slower. Halfling was the steady survivor. I think I mentioned this before. He was like a ranger to some extent. Quick like a thief, sturdy like a fighter, right? XP tables sat somewhere in between, and their saves made them excellent survivors. They were going to be front line. You didn't use them as a frontline fighter necessarily, but you know, each demi-human's XP curve was the price of their power. You didn't need artificial penalties. The progression rate did the balancing. Genius. Now, remember, in BX, most campaigns were assumed to end somewhere around 9th, 10th level. So those differences mattered in play, not just on paper. Which, again, is why the argument that the dwarf wasn't slowed down enough, because he could level the 12th level, so the cap wasn't a huge cap on that. On a level cap aspect, we cover that. So here's the secret sauce. XP for gold. You didn't get XP for fighting everything that moved. Minimal XP. You got it for bringing treasure home alive. That changed the way the game was going to be played. The treasure XP loop rewarded cleverness over combat. Combat was dangerous, but you could control how clever you were. Classes advanced at different rates, so everyone felt progress, but it was different for all. And, fighters maybe needed more XP than a thief or a cleric, but they also were built to survive better. So there was a balance. Thieves leveled fast, they took more risks. They had to reach maybe third or fourth level when their survivability was suddenly a little bit higher because they had a few hit points to back them up. But these different charts turned leveling into a shared journey to extent. Everyone advanced differently, but they all kind of advanced together. It was a party experience. And yes, at high levels, things get a bit wobbly whether you're playing BX or AD&D 1E or 3rd edition. 5 is high level right from the start. But, yes, the magic is just fireball. Made everyone else jealous of what the guy at 5th level. The elves' dual class routine could occasionally steal the spotlight. But every class had a purpose. Most BX campaigns, by far not all, but most ended around 7th to 9th level before the wheels started shaking on this cart. The imbalance part, right? Certain level, you start feeling that imbalance. Levels 7, 8, 9, you're probably still good. XP pacing assumes short to medium length campaigns. It was not necessarily assuming you'd reach 14th level, and God, it was not assuming you'd become what was it? In Beckme. Basic expert companion master immortal. Immortal, yes, you're gonna become demigods. That was not envisioned with BX. But let's leave it to Frank to make the next edition go to 11. But Moldvay knew where most groups would reboot before things got broken. Balance didn't need to be forever. It just needed to be long enough. So the beauty of BX leveling is that it feels earned. Each class, each race, each level up is a milestone that means something. Even though the unequal XP charts were there, it meant meaningful progress because everybody progressed slightly differently. And different rates could play into different playstyles. And it was balanced through cooperation, not combat math, not CR. It was through intelligent play. Modern systems chase fairness, right? 5e is balanced for your enjoyment. BX trusted the players. And that's why it's probably the most balanced, unbalanced game ever made. Certainly in our corner of the O.S.R. So there you have it. The secret balance to BX is the imbalance or the different leveling of the charts. It wasn't done by hit points or modifiers. It was done by timing, intention, and teamwork. And if you're watching this early, meaning before Saturday afternoon, you're likely a minion. And I appreciate your support. You got this before the rest of us, the rest of the realm. Everybody else, Saturday, 2 p.m. Next week, I think we'll dive into the Dungeon of the Living World, how BX turned exploration into tension, why every torch, every water skin mattered. Until then, keep your XP uneven, your mugs full, and your goblins running. God bless. I'll catch you all later.